It is being billed as perhaps the most anticipated showdown between a 4-4 team hosting a 2-7 team in NFL history. That's right. We've got the first overall pick hosting the third overall pick by the shores of Lake Michigan at beautiful, historic Soldier Field. And that's right. This weekend, we've got the Bears hosting the Pats. And here is the preview that you guys do not want to miss. Your old pal, Nick Fitzy Stevens from the Six Rings and Football Things podcast, alongside a very special guest, Dan Wiederer from the Take the North pod and the Chicago Tribune. This is the crossover event of the century right here. It's the Six Rings and Take the North preview of Patriots versus Bears. Dan, it is a pleasure to be on here with you today. Tell me, first and foremost, what is your level of excitement now heading into the game versus what you thought it was going to be when you first saw the schedule released a couple months back?
First of all, Fitzy, great to be with you. I will say this, that I probably have a lot more experience than you do covering 4-4 versus 2-7. You guys have lived in a different world for most of the 21st century, and this is kind of the world that the Bears have lived in forever. When you talk about the anticipation for this game, it's interesting because 2 weeks ago, the Bears played in Washington, and it was that highly publicized, highly touted showdown between Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels. And this doesn't seem to have the same luster to it for obvious reasons. Obviously, Jayden Daniels is off to a much hotter start than either of these other two quarterbacks. And now the Bears, after returning from London at 4-2 and feeling like the world was open to them, have suffered two really bad losses the last 2 weeks. And so the enthusiasm surrounding the team has dipped, and by extension, the enthusiasm surrounding this game has taken on a little different tone, because I think right now it's kind of just registering as a should-win, must-win opportunity for the Bears, and so people are kind of more on edge than excited as they might have been a month ago.
Yeah, let me tell you one thing, sir. If there is a team that you need on your schedule that's going to provide you the get-right game your franchise, your rookie quarterback, and your embattled coach and offensive coordinator need, that team would happen to be the New England Patriots. And I think it's super exciting because obviously you've got the rookie quarterback showing down, finding out that they were friends in high school and sort of kept in touch in college. They went to a lot of the same camps and seminars in high school. Then, Drake is at UNC, Caleb's at USC. It's amazing how it looks like the first three picks of the draft are all an absolute smash. Now, I know we don't want to anoint them the new kings of the NFL just yet, because 3 years ago we thought the 2021 draft was a smash. And now it looks like none of them, and maybe even Trevor Lawrence, can hang with the big boys in the NFL. But Caleb has intermittently at times been great. Drake is giving Pats fans on a really, really lousy roster on a cruddy football team, also with an embattled rookie head coach, a reason to believe. And last Sunday they're in Nashville, and the game was an absolute slog and a snooze all the way through. But you get to see every now and again those glimpses, that certain something that says, like, I know I got to go through hell to get to heaven. And if, dealing with 59 minutes and 45 seconds of trash, but only to get that signature play like Drake May gave the Patriots last Sunday at the end is what we have to do, then it's going to be a journey worthwhile. Does Caleb have, I know you guys were on the other end of the Hail Maryland, which I still can't possibly process and understand. Has there been like that signature moment thus far for Caleb Williams?
Well, it was a signature performance. I know you guys kind of followed us into London as the second team to play the Jaguars out there. And the game in London against Jacksonville was an absolute offensive explosion for the Bears. Caleb was in flow, in rhythm, had several highlight reel plays in that game, including one on an extended play throw to Cole Kmet that broke open, and then another kind of well-designed play where he hit Kmet down the middle for a touchdown. And so that game felt like a moment. It felt like a breakthrough for the offense. It came a week after they had scored 5 touchdowns against the Panthers. And in a 2-week span, you had 10 touchdowns from the offense, which was the first time in the Super Bowl era that the Chicago Bears had accomplished that. Again, different terrain than you're used to living in. And so that felt like a moment. Now, these last 2 weeks, the offense has struggled mightily, and it feels like they don't have a lot of rhythm. They don't have much identity. They've struggled to establish the running game or stay committed to it. And so there's a lot of troubleshooting going on inside that building. That's part of what this week is all about right now, is figuring out if they can find an answer to who they want to be. I think you could probably speak to this. It feels like the New England defense is vulnerable to be run on. And I think the Bears are hoping that if they emphasize the run and get that unlocked early, that they can open up some of that movement passing game, the play action stuff, the screen stuff, and all of a sudden you can get the quarterback back into one of those flows.
Yeah, let me tell you, if you guys are in need of a get right game, there is no, if you want to call 1-800-GET-RIGHT, you're going to get Drake May, or you're going to get Gerard Mayo or Elliot Wolf on the phone, because that's exactly what the Patriots have been. People thought that after his performance against the Texans in his debut, they'd go on the road and light up the worst secondary in the NFL. Turns out the Jags were able to run the ball 19 straight times, and Tank Bigsby became a fantasy mainstay and household name.
Yeah.
So, they beat the Jets, but May gets knocked out of the game. Last week, Tony Pollard and the Titans offense at times looks like the good old days of, George and Steve McNair at times. So Eddie George, excuse me. So the Pats are giving up an absurd amount of yards on the ground this season, but that's because the spine of their defense, the Christian Barmore on defensive tackle, Juwan Bentley at linebacker, and Jabril Peppers at safety, all of whom excel at their position, they're all gone. We need Barmore back, but that won't be in time for the Bears. So Sunday, if you guys are looking for a stabilizer game to give Caleb Williams like a steady backdrop in which he can sort of reset after a shocking ending against the Commanders and then just a shocking overall butt whooping against the Cardinals, the Patriots likely are going to be that game for you guys.
It feels like it. And I think that's where the anxiety creeps in here, because if it isn't, then the exposure of how big the Bears' problems really are will get magnified and amplified to levels that I'm not sure this city is ready for. And it kind of leads me to a question I have for you, because it feels like Drake May is being allowed the more traditional leeway of a highly drafted quarterback in his rookie season, where there isn't this win every week expectation that exists here in Chicago, because the Bears didn't own the number one pick that they used on Caleb Williams. They inherited it from the Carolina Panthers in that well-documented trade. And so a 2-7
you mean fleecing? Is it trade? You mean absolute fleecing?
Right. And so you look at it, and it just feels like a 2-7 football team offers a young quarterback a little bit more forgiveness, a little bit more time to grow without that amplifying pressure. My biggest worry here in Chicago, and is a worry I had before they even started the season, is that with a head coach who hadn't established himself, if you start attaching win or else head coaching pressure to a rookie quarterback trying to find his way in this league, things can get really complicated and really chaotic pretty quickly. The Bears are teetering toward that cliff right now. It feels like you're in a totally different situation there in New England, where Drake is being allowed to spread his wings, doesn't have that intense pressure on this season, and hopefully to his benefit will grow with the level of patience and forgiveness that should be afforded a young player.
Absolutely. And I think fans and team alike understand that right now, like everybody was referring to last Sunday's game as a loss that felt like everyone was referring to last Sunday's game as a loss that felt like a massive win for the Patriots, because you got to see Drake. You got to truly see what this kid is capable of with that 12-second long finale miracle to Ramondre Stevenson. But they lost the game, so they held on to their number one pick overall, because people around here check Tankathon, like they do their oil levels in their tanks and their thermostats. So he's going to be allowed all the leeway he needs, and there are no expectations being placed on him at this moment. If he just continues to grow, to ascend, to turn heads for the right way, and stay upright against one of the worst pass blocking, run blocking, just overall offensive lines in the NFL, then that's great. He's getting all the reps he needs for when they can hopefully draft and spend accordingly in the offseason. As far as the coaching goes, though, I would say Eberflus and Waldron and company are under more pressure right now, because you guys went into the season with a rookie quarterback, and a vaunted one at that, who seemed pretty pro-ready, but you surrounded him accordingly with talent. DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, Adunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. We would give you my kingdom for one of those five guys.
Right.
Like we have Hunter Henry, and that's it. That's the tweet. Like there's nothing surrounding Drake May. The coaches, though, are under a different kind of pressure. While you would think a first-year coach like Gerard Mayo would also be given a longer runway as well, he's really kind of not being afforded one, because of his connection to Belichick and the Patriots organization, and the fact that every time he seems to make a decision, a day or two later, he walks it back. So he calls the players soft, but then says, no, I meant to say they were playing soft. We're going to burn some cash. Well, actually, no, we're going to be fiscally responsible and save it for next year. We're going to win 4 or 5 games, bare minimum. Hold on, guys. This is a development year. Like, we're kind of all over the place. So I think we as fans are tuning out the noise and just focusing on the reason to be excited, which is Drake May. And so when you get to see 1v3 on what should be a crisp autumn day at Soldier Field, I think there's reason for everybody to be fired up.
It should be pretty nice, yeah, as an afternoon, and hopefully the football game provides some entertainment value. Because I'll tell you, my experience in Arizona last week, that football game was ugly. If you were watching from a Chicago Bears lens, they did nothing right, and a defense that has been really, really good for not only the entirety of this season but the back half of last year fell apart. And the worry you have sometimes in these situations is that when the offense is scuffling, as bad as the Bears' offense is scuffled and as inconsistent as they have been, sometimes the defense reaches a breaking point. I don't think that's what last week was, but it was certainly worrisome because the Cardinals established a run, kept pounding the rock, and the Bears couldn't stop it. They gave up the 53-yard touchdown run in the final seconds before halftime, and that was the backbreaker. And it's one of those moments in a season where you go, oh, is that the moment? I always talk in Chicago here, and again, another area where we're more familiar than you guys are, about a lever loss, a game where if you lose it, the lever gets pulled and the bottom falls out of your season. Sunday here against the Patriots is an opportunity for a lever loss if the Bears aren't sharp and they don't take care of their business. That's the kind of stakes that are attached to this game. A win will be much less significant than a loss. And so the Bears have to be aware of that. They have to attack it with urgency. And you're hopeful. You listed all the offensive playmakers that they have. They have a surplus on defense as well and expect to get Montez Sweat and Kyler Gordon back this week,
which is big.
They should have more players here to win this football game. And so if anything other than that happens, I think you're going to see something in Chicago that is pretty ugly pretty quickly.
It's so funny because I thought when you said it's a lever loss and that makes sense, that analogy of just like pulling the lever and the floor coming out from under you or sending you into a tailspin that your team never recovers from. I could understand the Commanders loss being one of those games where no matter how hard you try, it's always burned into the back of your mind and you can't shake that. And hopefully, like I said, the Patriots are the get right game. I thought when you said that, you said it's a liver loss, as in like you're going to go after the game. You're just gonna be like, honey, hope the beer fridge is stocked up because dad's going to need a couple extras commiseration beverages. And that's sort of where we used to be because expectations in Patriot Nation and throughout New England were calibrated differently.
Correct.
This feels like the first time now everybody is writing their mind around the idea like, guys, just because you see the flying Elvis, just because you see the Patriots font, just because the games take place now where they have the tallest artificial lighthouse and the world's biggest single panel flat screen TV, it doesn't mean, in full-throated Rick Pitino, like Bill Belichick's not walking out that door. Tom Brady's not coming out that tunnel on Sunday. No, instead, it's a bunch of guys that are basically UDFAs, UFL extras, and holdovers from the championship days, guys that are looking to prove that they belong in the NFL or as part of the solution and not the problem with the Patriots. They've got guys on both sides. Like we just signed, they just poached another guy off of someone else's practice squad. Robinson is his name. He's a guard from Minnesota. That'll be the Patriots' 13th different offensive lineman this year. 14 is the NFL record, and I think I would hammer the over on FanDuel or DraftKings if I could, because this is basically one. There's Christian Gonzalez on defense.
Right.
There's Drake May on offense. And that, I think they'll probably hold on to the punter and the place kicker. But the other 49 almost feel like they are completely open for audition right now.
By the way, I am going to steal liver loss for my radio appearances here in Chicago for later in the week. I like that one a lot. We're going to add that to the repertoire.
Please, by all means. We share IP freely like we share IPAs. My pleasure.
Exactly. It's good stuff. The other part of this year is you look at a Bears team that has gotten used to the world that you're living in. And I always say to fan bases like the one in New England, like, welcome to the world of mediocrity and struggle, because I know you've had 20 plus years to not be in this uncomfortable world that much of the NFL lives in. I always say that the neighbors to the north up here in Green Bay are going to encounter that territory at some point. It can't just be Hall of Fame quarterback, another Hall of Fame quarterback, a third Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm still not sold on Jordan Love up there, not to get too far off course, but if they end up falling back into that land that most of the world lives in, I don't know that they're ready for that psychologically. And I don't know how it is in New England in sort of the last 4 or 5 years of coming to grips with, oh man, like this isn't what it used to be. Right. And by the way, I speak from the existence of a childhood Chicago Bulls fan who thought that, you were just promised trips in the NBA finals and then you would just lean on your savior to pull you out of those. And then you experience 20 plus years of not having that, and you go, man, those were the days, huh?
Yeah, like for you, it used to be like, all right, wake me up in late April or early May when we play the Knicks in the playoffs. And for Patriots fans, it was always like, all right, just let me know when we play the Texans in the divisional round or something like that, or the Broncos. Like that's the way that we came about expecting our seasons to go. You had your double dynastic run with Chicago and the Bulls, 3 championships, a baseball intermission, Terry Francona saying like, why don't you go back to basketball? And then, 3 more championships for us, 3 10-year window, 3 more with Belichick and Brady. And now the Patriots look like at least they found their quarterback, which is a big start. And I think you guys have as well. I'm just wondering, one, we're coming off of a trade deadline where the Patriots were largely inactive as well. And I'm wondering if you guys thought there's more you should have done at the deadline to try to bolster the ranks and give this team a chance to compete for a wild card in an NFC that is definitely tougher than the AFC. And 2, are you as disappointed with the coaches as it seems like a lot of people in Chicago, both the fans and media alike, are? Because when I looked at that team preseason, I thought, holy smokes, there's a chance 4 teams in the NFC North,
Correct,
the best division in football, could make the playoffs. I mean, you got DJ Moore, Dunze, Keenan Allen, Kmet. That's any quarterback, let alone a rookie quarterback's dream squad right there.
Not only is that a rookie quarterback's dream squad, a top 10 defense that can keep you in every single game is a rookie quarterback's dream squad, because it takes the pressure off you to have to do too much in a given week. And so everything's been set up for this team to succeed. So I'll answer your second question first, because I think there's colossal disappointment in the coaching staff here right now, because not only have they lost, the manner of these last 2 losses where coaching decisions or coaching malpractice played into the reason that you lost winnable football games, including one on the final drive where you had stolen a win in Washington. And it was going to be one of those wins that could have been a signature victory for a team on the rise. And you quickly, in 26 seconds, made it the exact opposite, right? You made it the type of loss that you may never forget and may haunt you for the rest of your coaching life. Right.
And quickly, side question to you. I'm dying to know, which do you think was the more unforgivable moment? Was it the name of the cornerback who escapes me? 29.
Tyreek Stevenson.
Yep, Stevenson. Wow, we each got a Stevenson that could play a factor in this game on Sunday. Was it Stevenson dinking around over in the end zone, or was it Eberflus and the staff's decision to just allow Daniels to throw a 13-yard out to McLaurin to set up the possibility even of the Hail Maryland?
They're both egregious. I think the Stevenson thing is more egregious because not only was he not focused on the play, he then completely abandoned his responsibilities and was actually the one who tipped the football, even though he was not supposed to be the jumper on that play. He was supposed to be the guy guarding the guy in the end zone, and he ended up jumping above the pile to tip the football to the guy he was supposed to be covering.
Facepalm City.
Right. That's Facepalm City, and it's inexcusable. But I think Chicago also was in quite a lather about just the coaching staff's not only decision, but assertion that the 13 yards on the previous play didn't matter at all. And it's like, well, wait a second. You preferred him to throw a 52-yard pass that could get tipped at the 3-yard line versus a 65-yard pass that would have been tipped at the 15-yard line. Like, the math doesn't compute. Physics doesn't compute in that situation. And so Matt Eberflus's stubborn sort of marriage to that concept was off-putting. And it comes, in the middle of his 3rd season where there's so many losses. They blew 3 huge leads in the 4th quarter a year ago in losses to the Broncos, the Browns, and the Lions that those scars still haven't healed. And then you add that one on top of it, and you have very few signature victories. The question on whether this is the right coach to take your program to the next level is not only loud, it's as loud as it's ever been, and it's only going to get louder. Just circling back to your trade deadline question, the Bears were just a small seller on Tuesday. They sent Khalil Herbert to the Cincinnati Bengals for a 7th-round pick. He'll get in their backfield possibly as early as Thursday night. But you had a situation where I think Ryan Poles was open to conversation, but also understanding that, look, like we've seen through the first 8 games of the season, that this team isn't going to contend for a Super Bowl. The goal here in this town is to open up a window where we can be competitive for the next 10 years. And so kind of juggling the want to be good right now with the discipline to understand that you've got to keep some of your draft capital and your salary cap space to build this team into a sustainable contender was kind of the driving force. And they ultimately kind of stood pat, which is contrary to what they had done the previous 2 years, where they had gone out, traded for Chase Claypool 2 years ago, traded for Montez Sweat a year ago. And so there wasn't a big splash this year as there had been the previous 2 years. But I think they're comfortable with that because they understand the long view of what their roster needs to look like.
Yes, and both teams are right now in the long view. It's just that you guys are a little further along with your roster on both sides of the ball. I see. I had written even for weei.com how the Montez Sweat trade to me was fascinating, because that was my outline for why I thought the Patriots should go out, look for somebody, identify someone that's a pending free agent, and offer up some mid-level capital now. Use the third that you got from Matt Judon, sending him to Atlanta. Go get that guy. Don't let him get to market. Audition him. Let him vibe around Drake May. See that things are starting to turn a cultural corner in New England. And then if you like the fit, lock him up long-term before anyone else has a chance to have him sign on the line as dotted and give him way too much money. But for some reason, Gerard Mayo said that, they decided to sit pat and it's all about value. One thing that we're all tired of hearing about is about value. We don't care about, like, the fans that pay hundreds of dollars to sit at Soldier Field or Gillette Stadium don't want to hear value, because they don't necessarily feel like they're getting the ROI for the hundreds, if not thousands, they spend going to these games. As far as the coaching staff goes, there are a lot of questions in New England right now about, like, is Gerard Mayo the guy? Is he going to be given enough time to establish his new culture? And more importantly, is somebody who seems like a glorified quarterbacks coach in Alex Van Pelt the right guy? Now, he's grooming Drake May accordingly, but is he the right guy for the offense? And I feel like you guys are facing similar questions, like, can Eberflus handle this evolving dynamic roster? And is Shane Waldron the right guy to help somebody who can be a bit of an enigma, but is super talented in Caleb Williams?
Right. And like, you have to continue to show steps in the right direction with the evolution of what your offense looks like and what you want it to look like. And right now they seem to have hit this really rough spot in their development. And surprising, because again, we talked about what they did in London, and then you had a bye week and you felt like, oh man, they're going to get a chance to take a breath, iron out some of the things that have made them, a little bit bumpy throughout the first 6 games of the year, and they're just going to be hitting the springboard to head forward. And it's been the exact opposite, where they've struggled mightily the last 2 weeks. Caleb, to me, you talked about flashes earlier with Drake, and I do have a couple of quick Drake questions for you when I'm finished with this, but he has every prerequisite that you want in a franchise quarterback, from the mental toughness to the flash plays, the ability to make plays off script, to the ability to understand what he's seeing from a defense. That still doesn't make you immune to the rookie learning curve, right? And I think some of that right now is, like, there's going to be a natural dip in that growth chart when you're a rookie quarterback in this league. And so the Bears just have to figure out a way to steady him through that. He has to figure out a way to steady himself. But then it comes back to what you talked about. You see the playmakers you have on the roster, and you say, well, wait a second. When he starts to struggle, the message only needs to be like, listen, we're going to give you a game plan this week that takes advantage of one of these guys. This week it'll probably be DeAndre Swift. We're going to try to get him unlocked really early. Pressure's off you. If we can get that unlocked
big time
pretty early, you're good to go. In other weeks, it should be DJ. It should be Keenan Allen. It should be Cole Kmet, who, by the way, had a huge game in London and has had 1 target in the past 2 games. That's the type of stuff that's
inexplicable.
It rankles a fan base here, where you say, how, as a coaching staff, do you allow that to happen? And how do you not at least manufacture 4 targets over a 2-game span just to keep the flow of the offense going in the right direction? With Drake, I'd be curious to know, from what you've seen, has it been 5 starts or five appearances?
It's been 4 starts, 3.5 games. He got knocked out halfway through the Jets game and then went into the protocol and bounced back in time for Nashville.
Everyone I had talked to during the pre-draft process, because we were obviously doing our quarterback homework as much as anyone, felt like he was going to be the one guy in the class that could use time to kind of learn the NFL game from the side.
Right.
Do you feel like he's benefiting from this current starting stretch this early? And also, which flashes have you kind of leaned into as being like, man, that's something that Patriots fans can truly believe in?
Well, first and foremost, the dude can scoot. They're not even doing designed runs, and he's the leading rusher on the team, which is a sad indictment on Ramondre Stevenson, but more importantly, said offensive line, which is on a regular audition pace now. Like I said earlier, last week it was 8 for 95 coming out of the concussion protocol as well. I can only imagine what's going to happen when they decide to put more on his plate and give him some design runs. But these are him just seeing that the play has broken down, the pocket is folding underneath him, and he needs to do something. His running ability is off the charts, and that the escapability he displayed on the 12 seconds and the micro Hail Mary at the end of the game to Ramondre Stevenson was mind-blowing. So I think the team is all in. Alex Van Pelt has said his processing is well beyond where he thought it would be at this point. He said he sees the field calmly and understands the play, the pressures, and what he needs to do way beyond what they could have even hoped to coach him up to at this point. So coaches and fans alike are all on board with him. And as far as back to the pre-draft process, I got dragged into the whole like, whoa, let's sit this guy for a while. Maybe not full Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers, but let's at least give him like the Mahomes year to just sort of sit back and watch. Now, granted, Kansas City could allow that to happen because they had a playoff caliber quarterback on a playoff team with Alex Smith, whereas the Patriots had old man Brissett, who week by week was just getting hit harder and harder, taking too long to make plays. And I think, honestly, what happened was that ownership made a business decision and said, we can't have empty seats. We can't have people complaining. We got to sell some jerseys and we got to start the future now. And they put him in. And, you know, even though they lost by 20 in the first game to the Texans, people saw, wait a second, have you, this kid like throwing against his body can put it 45 yards on a laser line. He's got it. He's raw still. There's a lot of work to do. But holy smokes, I think they really lucked into something. And then on top of it all, coming from, Klaus von Complainerson with Mac Jones, just like, I'm always not happy. And, I'm never comfortable here versus Drake May, who's just country strong and affable AF. I think it's a blessing for this team.
I was going to say, I really enjoyed my limited interactions with him during the pre-draft process. Seems like a very enthusiastic, consistently enthusiastic young dude, and Josh McCown, who's a friend of our program a little bit. I think he coached him in high school for 1 or 2 years in North Carolina, and spoke really highly just about the drive, and the understanding of what drive at the professional level needs to look like. And so it feels like that some of those intangible boxes May's got checked with Sharpie.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he came from a family, like his brother won a national championship at UNC. Like he was brother number 4. He was used to having his head stuffed under the pillows and getting beaten up in the basement by his brother. So there's humility. There's a toughness to him as well. We're in love with him. One of our viewers who's watching live on YouTube as we record the 6 Rings and Take the North crossover wanted to know if you've been more impressed overall with Caleb or Drake to date.
I haven't watched enough of Drake to know, but I have been impressed with Caleb through the first 6 games. The last 2 have left a little something to be desired. But even when I was going back through the video of the Cardinals game the other day, there was more in the first half that encouraged me than I remembered in live action. And you go through it and you're like, man, there's some special plays in there. The second half became a total, I called it a Tom and Jerry episode the other day, where the pressure was getting home. Caleb was responsible for some of it because he wasn't setting it straight. They were without 2 starting tackles, and it was just ugly. It was just eventually it just became total chaos, and you kind of lose the evaluation lens at that point. And you're like, just get out of this game. It'll be fun to watch these 2 guys head to head on Sunday. I know both guys will kind of downplay the matchup, so to speak, but I was also pleased to learn this week that their relationship goes all the way back to that Elite 11 camp in Nashville in 2020, and that 2 dudes that seem like pretty good guys to be around. It's cool to know that they have their own connection, and will probably visit pregame for a little bit, and then obviously with the postgame handshake.
Yep. And again, like for you guys, you need some wins to get back on track. We just want to see proper development and progress overall on the team, and especially with Drake. All right, I'll give you my prediction because we got to get out of here in just a second. Appreciate the time, man. This has been a blast.
Good time.
I got you. I got a good game that leads to just a little more running and a little more defensive toughness from the Bears over to Pats. I got Bears 20, Pats 13. How about yourself?
I'm going to go 24-16 Bears. Again, I can't even fathom a world where I get back in my car at Soldier Field on Sunday night and the Bears lose to this opponent, because that means my life for the next 2 months is about creating coaching search lists. And I don't really want to live in that world just yet. We may have to live in it eventually, but week 10, too early for that.
I know. I can't imagine it if I'm leaving the field with my son who's going to his first road Patriots game ever is like, Dad, you told me we suck. How did we win this game? And his best friend, who's a Bears fan, 12 years old as well, will probably just be inconsolable. And a lot of again, we want to hold the number 1 draft pick because what we need to do? We need to find our Panthers and fleece them, have someone fall in love with Cam Ward and trade number 1 overall for like 5 picks and really reboot our franchise the same way you guys got your Herschel Walker deal.
Listen, if you need a manual for tracking the number 1 pick, we did it the last 2 years. We had 2 consecutive years of doing it. So I'm happy to send that over to you. I've got it in my office drawer over here somewhere. I'll send the binder over and you guys can use it to navigate.
That would be awesome. If you could make a PDF out of that, I could share with the followers and fans. That would be awesome. All right. This has been the Take the North pod and 6 Rings and Football Things pod crossover preview of Patriots at Bears on Sunday. Of course, you can follow him at Dan Wiederer. You can subscribe to the Take the North pod and, of course, read his musings, analyses, notes, and more in the Chicago Tribune. I'm your old pal, Nick Fitzy-Stevens from WEEI and WEEI.com. I will not be on the postgame show this weekend because I will be at the game, which I am thrilled to be attending. But you can hear me after each and every Patriots game on WEEI 93.7 FM. Dan, this has been awesome. Thanks so much. Best of luck on Sunday. And I hope these guys meet up again in a couple of years when the stakes are higher and we see both of them fully evolved at the height of their powers.
Yeah, man, it was great to visit with you. I hope you travel safe here. And if you need any restaurant recommendations for you and the boys, let me know and I'll shoot them over.
I'm going straight from Midway right to Lou Malnati's, and then I'm just going to eat my way around town.
Perfect.
It's going to be awesome. All right, take care. Good day. God bless to all. Have a great game day on Sunday, everyone. This has been Six Rings and Football Things and the Take the North pod, brought to you by your friends at Odyssey.